see my screen. All right, so match racing. So in sailing, we have a few um, different disciplines of sailing. So we have fleet racing, which is what we do in college most often. Um, that consists by rule of 3 boats or more, kind of every man for himself. It's you against everybody else. And you're essentially just trying to sail your own race, be as good as possible. Then there's team racing, which we also do pretty commonly in college. And that's 3 boats versus 3 boats. And essentially, your team of 3 is trying to outscore the other team of 3 in order to win each race. And that'll be the subject of a separate chalk talk because that's super interesting too. And then we have match racing, which we're talking about today, which is one-on-one. Your only goal is just to beat the other boat. Okay, leading off from match racing, we have the America's Cup. The America's Cup is the oldest trophy in international sport. It was first won in 1856 by the yacht America, and it's been essentially a trophy for uber rich people to have bragging rights for ever since. Currently, it's the on its 36th edition, but what's exciting and kind of what's driving this conversation is that the qualifier series, the Prada Cup, to determine who gets to challenge for the America's Cup is occurring this weekend and the next weekend. Essentially, okay, here so some of the fundamentals of match racing. You're not really trying to be fast, but you don't necessarily, it's not like you're trying to find the shortest path around the course. You're trying to use rules to your advantage. If you're ahead, you're trying to stay between your opponent and the mark, so they can never escape from you and get a favorable wind shift or a big puff that you also won't be in. Don't get penalties, obviously. If you get a penalty, you either got to do a 360 or try to get the other boat a penalty. And in this form of racing, crew work becomes very important because you do a lot of maneuvers. And if your crew work's bad, then you're going to be bad. So I think what I'm going to do is, to explain this, we're going to just watch a race from the 2007 America's Cup, which is, I think, a good example of classical match racing, and everything that represents. And it'll be a good illustrator of the format as well. So here we go. So essentially what happens at the beginning of a match race is, at the 5-minute signal, both boats will enter the starting box. So if you imagine a start line, and 2 lines going vertically towards the wind, those are your entry lines. And so at 5 minutes, both boats will come in, enter the starting box, and then you end up like this, where you have a port starboard situation. So this boat, Emirates Team New Zealand, is on starboard tack. The wind is coming over the starboard side of the boat. The wind's coming from more or less here. And Alinghi, the Swiss boat, is on port tack. So Emirates Team New Zealand is going to try and gain an advantage on Alinghi here by using their right-of-way to their advantage. And you'll see what happens here is they come up towards each other, and Alinghi will tack. So now here it's a windward-leeward situation. So Alinghi here is downwind of New Zealand, and so they now have right-of-way, and Alinghi and New Zealand has to keep clear. And essentially what will happen is they'll just post up, and now both boats are stopped. And in traditional match racing, you kind of just wait until someone makes a move. That can be you, that can be the other boat. It depends on where you want to go. Right now, both boats are kind of just feeling each other out. And then also people on the boat are looking up the course and figuring out what side of the line they want to start on. Because if they want to start, say, on the left side, which would be over here, Alinghi's going to have the advantage because they're already over there. And if they want to start on the right, New Zealand here is going to have an advantage because they're already over on the right. I believe, so they sit here for almost 2 minutes, and they break from the dial-up. I have notes written down. Here we go. So you can see, actually it's Alinghi that breaks from the dial-up.
So to be clear, Kai,
Yeah,
dial-up.
New Zealand backs away first. Oh, what was that, Jack?
I just wanted to clarify, what exactly is the dial-up?
Okay, yeah. So we can go back.
Is it just a maneuver of two boats coming in on different tacks and rounding up?
Yeah. So when they enter the starting box here, they're on a port starboard, and essentially what New Zealand's going to do is they're just going to sail straight at Alinghi on starboard. Alinghi has to keep clear somehow. So what they're going to do is they're kind of going to maneuver, and they're just going to tack into the leeward position. And they're allowed to do that because New Zealand has to give them room to keep clear in whatever way they see fit. And then they'll end up here, and now Alinghi is on starboard tack, and Emirates is also on starboard tack. And now they're just going to sit there. Because Alinghi, really what Alinghi wants to do is get over to the starboard side of Emirates to New Zealand, and Emirates to New Zealand wants to stop them from doing that. So they're just going to sit there because they're kind of in a stalemate. And that's the dial-up in traditional match racing.
Awesome, thank you.
And then they'll break from that. So Emirates starts backwinding their jib, and they come away because they want to protect the right side. In the commentary, if you watch this on your own, you can hear that their tactician is like, we like the right's favored. So they're going to break away and try to protect the right-hand side. And they break away. And now they're kind of just, here we go. So New Zealand does a little bit of like a double jibe here to try to get underneath Alinghi, get to leeward. And here, Alinghi's trying to come down, and New Zealand's right here. Here we go. So Alinghi's trying to come down, New Zealand's right here, trying to stop him. And New Zealand will be a little bit too far ahead to actually do anything, but they're just trying to force them close to the line so they don't have any maneuvering room. And then we come down, and now, here we go. Here we have sort of like a chase situation. Both boats are now sailing away from the starting line. And the boats that are ahead have the right of way. So New Zealand can kind of do whatever they want here. And Alinghi's just waiting for them to turn around. And they keep going. So now both boats have turned and are sailing back towards the starting line. And New Zealand wants the right-hand side here, so they're going to try and sail high and get up over here to get away from Alinghi. And you can see there, they do that pretty successfully. So they're pretty set now. This is their final situation as they go towards the starting line. And kind of the rest of it is just, there's a minute to go, and they're maybe 30 seconds from the line if they sail full speed. So they're just trying to kill time. And they kill time. They do a couple S turns. And then you can see the bowman up here. He's calling where the starting line is. 3, 2, 1. And there's the start. So New Zealand's got maybe, I don't know, 6 feet. And they're just going to sit here. And you can hear the commentator say, like, oh, can New Zealand live there? And what he means by that is now Alinghi down to leeward has right of way, but they're also shedding a little bit of dirty air up towards New Zealand. So the dirty air is super important in match racing because you can use it to slow down the other boat. So the dirty air of Alinghi is extending off down this way. The biggest portion is here. but there's also a little bit extending out from their bow like this, and that's maybe affecting the back edge of New Zealand's sail, and that'll slow them down and cause them to drop back. Okay, and then so they're going to sail like this for a while. You can see New Zealand's kind of separated a little bit, so clearly there was no dirty air that was affecting them. And then it cuts to later in the race. This is what's called, like, what's important upwind are like the crosses. So the boats will kind of separate from each other, and then they'll tack and it'll come back together. And whether they cross each other is super important, because the starboard tack boat has right of way, but what you'll see here is the port tack boat can tack and then start affecting the wind of the starboard tack boat. And essentially both boats are just trying to force mistakes out of the other boat to gain an advantage. So you'll see here, 647. They're sailing upwind, getting really close. New Zealand's now like, oh, starboard, 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 because New Zealand has right of way here. And Alinghi will tack. And then hopefully it shows, yeah. So you can see they tacked to leeward and in front, and that's called a lee bow tack. So they're coming upwind, and then you tack, and you want your stern to be like kind of pinned to the other boat's bow, and then you're just sending a ton of dirty air up the backside of their sails. And you can see here New Zealand's already tacking because they know that's not what they want to happen. And they tack away. And then you can see later on, you can see now they've done this several times where New Zealand will sail away and they'll come back, and then they'll get lee bowed, they'll tack away, they'll come back, they'll get lee bowed, so on. This upwind leg's like 15 miles. They do this forever. And that's where, like, you would never do this in a fleet race, right? If you're doing 30 tacks up an upwind leg, like, that's just slow. But if you and the other boat are both doing 30 tacks up a leg, if you gain, say, 1 meter during a tack compared to the other boat, you've done 30 tacks, and now you've gained 30 meters. So that's where the crew work becomes super important in match racing. And then they do this for forever. And you can see now coming up to the mark. Good. YouTube.
Yeah, we're actually sponsored by the Pillow Cube, so be sure to check that out.
Clearly, Emirates' right side bid didn't pay off. Was that Daniel?
Never mind. I was just talking about the pillows.
Yeah, so Emirates' right side bid didn't pay off, but they're still pretty close. And what happens downwind is the advantage switches. So where the lead boat has the advantage going upwind, the trailing boat has the advantage going downwind, because now their wind shadow is basically the rear boat's wind shadow can affect the lead boat. So they'll come around the mark, they'll hoist their spinnakers, and now here Emirates is just waiting for an opportunity to get the dirty air from this big giant spinnaker onto Alinghi. Unfortunately, they don't do that. Where is it? 12:23. So you can see here, Emirates couldn't affect the wind, but they're going to jibe off and go to what they think is the favored side. And Alinghi does sort of a bad job, is they're just going to let them split. So yeah, you can hear the commentator say that Alinghi didn't choose to go with him. So that's kind of risky, because remember what I said earlier, you want to be between your opponent and the mark. You want to get the same wind that they are, and you know, you'll be approximately the same speed. So as long as you're between your opponent and the mark, you're going to get the wind that they get, and they can't pull an advantage on you because of a wind shift or something like that. You can see they go with them here, but not after a big split. 1755. So yeah, they go all the way down Linton like that. And you can see, you know, Alinghi's pulled out maybe another 50 meters on him. So I guess credit to their tactician. They saw the wind, they went to the wind, and, you know, they pulled out another 50 meters on him. So I guess it worked out there. It is a little bit risky if you let the other boat in a match race go away. So they'll do their mark rounding. These are super impressive. They get all of this giant sail down in like 0.2 seconds. You know, four all the way into the hole. And it's already down. That maneuver on like a normal like 30-foot boat takes anywhere from like 2 minutes to like 10 minutes, depending on how much you fuck up. And they just did it in like 10 seconds. So
I'm pretty sure our douses were that clean.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
No. We had some disasters. Anyway. So they'll go upwind. Emirates is gonna try to create a split here. They're gonna go the other direction around the mark. They're doing gate marks here. So you can see here, Alinghi has decided, this is a good move, I think, has decided to tack and do a loose cover on New Zealand. So they'll stay, they're not going to be close enough to like affect the wind, but they're just going to stay in the same breeze. And they're just going to kind of sit there. And Emirates is not going to be able to get an advantage out of that. And then here we can see that, yeah, so Alinghi, basically New Zealand tacked back, and then Alinghi just went a little further, tacked back. So this is just a very loose, they're in the same wind, but they're not affecting the breeze kind of deal. And then, where am I at? Okay, 2052. This is a good example of a very classic tacking battle. So you'll get into this rhythm of just tacking and hoping the other boat messes up. So New Zealand's coming back on port here. Alinghi's on starboard. Alinghi has right of way because they're on starboard tack. And they're just going to, at some point right here, they're just going to tack in front. And they'll tack. Emirates is like, cool, they'll tack away, avoid the dirty air. And then this cycle will repeat. So they'll tack again here. Both boats are coming back towards each other now. Alinghi's still on starboard. New Zealand on port. And Alinghi will just tack again. And you'll see by the time this has happened, where are they at? New Zealand's already tacking. And they just keep doing that. All the grinders. These guys are not having a fun time right now. All these guys are like, damn, we're tacking 40 times up this upwind leg, and we're doing all of the work. All the guys in the back are like, all right, let's tack. These guys have to do the muscle. They're not having a good time. Yeah, look at how hard these guys are working. Not loving it. This continues all the way to windward mark, and this is like an identical situation to the previous upwind mark. So did all that for, you know, essentially nothing, but it was worth a try. They're going to hoist again. I'll show you some of the differences in crew work here. This is a good example of like how much you can gain off of a good hoist. So Swiss boat Alenghi hoist right here, going around the mark. And you can see they kites up, but it's not full, and it's still not full, still not full, and it'll cut away, still not full, really struggling. This is not good. And now it's full. Now it's actually generating speed, and you'll see New Zealand, it's up and it's full. And that's, you know, they were 50 meters behind and maybe they gained like a boat length or something like that. So makes a big difference if you can get your crew work super polished. And then they'll try it again, coming down this run. You know, they got a split here, so they'll try and sail in different wind. But, you know, their navigation ends up not working out for them. You can see here, windier here, lighter here. So they've sailed into lighter air and it's a little bit over for them. They'll come back and, you know, that's the same lead as they had at the windward mark. And then here's the finish. So 180 meters, pretty comfortable. So that was a match race. If you are curious about more match races, there's plenty on the America's Cup YouTube channel. They have all of the races. So they've got like 1988, a video. They've got all of the ones from recent years. This is the one that happened in 2017 in catamarans, 2013 in catamarans, you know, monohull races from 2000, 2003, and 2007. So if you want to watch some match racing, it's out there. Yeah.